Hey everybody, Jamie Starr here for the New World News Network. Today on this video, I'm going to get into something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. I saw Black Pigeon Speaks. He did a video recently about Brexit and how the UK is sort of in this position where they have like battered wife syndrome, where like the EU is treating them horribly. Like it's just dragging them down. It's not doing anything good for them or anything like that. And they sort of have this idea, though, that if they leave, everything will fall apart and they'll be vulnerable and, nothing good will come of it. While Trump is approaching them and being like, hey, we're here for you, this, and that. We'll, trade agreements are on the table, whatever, whatever. And these people, like these crazy leftists, they're just can't wrap their heads around it. So extrapolating that onto other issues, I'm sort of seeing this battered wife syndrome mentality everywhere with leftists. And it's one of these things, like, I think it's the inevitable conclusion, or maybe even the starting point of the victim mentality thing. Like, when we think of the victim mentality thing, we think of the idea of like African Americans thinking they're victims forever because of history, or, gays thinking they're victims forever because they couldn't get married, as if they were like hunted down and persecuted or something. It's just nonsense. But this victim mentality, it is like through and through. And I would get into, when I had my sort of right-wing political debate, political awakening, I would have debates with my mom about gun control, because she's just like, there'll never be a gun in my house. Guns are evil. Guns are okay for hunting. It's this again, this idea of the nationalism is bad, patriotism is good, even though they mean the same thing. What goes on there is this mindset of, I can hate the country while telling myself I hate it out of love because I really love the country. It also ties into another topic I'm going to do another video on, about how liberals focus on liberties and how the right wing focuses on rights. In the right wing perspective, you have a right to own a gun given to you from God. Period. End of story. That's all there is to it. In the left wing worldview, you get government granted liberties. And it's why you see this obsession with civil rights. Like as if, gay people didn't have rights until they said, well, here are the rights specifically for gays. No, you're American citizens. You have rights, but that's the difference between rights and civil rights. It ties into the protection racket concept Owen Benjamin put forth, which I think is a really amazing way to look at some of this stuff. But another video is going to be coming on rights versus liberties. This all kind of ties into it, but let's first get into what battered wife syndrome is. Battered woman or battered person syndrome is a psychological condition that can result when a person experiences abuse, usually at the hands of an intimate partner. People who find themselves in an abusive relationship often do not feel safe or happy, yet they feel unable to leave for many reasons. Brexit, basically. These include fear and belief that they are the cause of the abuse. Now, before, we can pretty much take this right here, and just, that's it right there. But we see this all the time. Obama would come out whenever, Obama's apology tour. We are to blame, not Islamic terrorism, for massacres. You see this whenever there's a gun shooting. It's America's gun problem. It's the NRA. It's always this spreading of the blame, no personal responsibility, and that somehow the victims deserve it. Like I even saw a video today where someone was saying, America deserves whatever horrors come to it because of what we did to the Native Americans. It's this pathology. It's this pathologizing and rationalizing why the government or why someone is fucking you over, and in some way you deserved it. And again, just because it's like personal instances, like, you know, one of the biggest eye-opening things that happened with me as far as making me become more libertarian is two instances specifically I'll bring up. One of them was when a friend of mine, his parents died, and he inherited the house and some automobiles. And one day the government comes to him and says, these cars are without plates. You can't keep them in the driveway. Now, the driveway is your property, quote unquote. We'll get into that in another second. But they don't have plates on them, so you can't keep them in the driveway. Okay. So what does he do? He pulls them out onto the side of the road. He keeps trying to obey alternate side parking, but they said he can't have them in the driveway or he'll get fined or ticketed, so he puts them on the side of the road. Well, what happens when they're on the side of the road? Well, now the government comes and they tow them away. And they say, well, since we told you, you know, we would charge you money for having them in your driveway, and then you moved them over here where now we can take them because they don't have plates, you now have to pay us for your property back. And that's when I looked into this and I said, how the fuck is the government allowed to tell you, you have to have this on your car. If you don't have this on your car, we're going to take your car. We're going to steal it from you, basically, legalize theft. And then we're going to charge you money to get your property back that we stole. I mean, you want to talk about abusive relationship? I'm going to steal your shit and then I'm going to tell you pay me to give it back to you? It doesn't get more abusive than that. Now, where that goes into, if anyone wants to look into it, when you register the title and all of that to your car, you register it to the city or town you live in. You are essentially signing over your property to the city or town. A lot of people don't realize that's what's going on in that fine print. Legally, you don't own your car if it's registered. The city or ordinance or town or whatever you live in, they own your car. So they didn't come and take your shit. They came and took their shit back because you're just the one that babysits it, essentially. It's really amazing. Like, you would think they would give out tax incentives to get cars then, since the government owns them, but they don't want people knowing that's how this game is played. So, speaking of driveways, my mother used to have a giant garage at the end of her driveway. Probably was a one car, but you know, it's for our driveway, one car. Things I remember it most being used for were just to store gardening tools, and we did a haunted house one year for Halloween. So it started getting holes in the roof, so my mom decided we'll just knock it all down, and then we'll just put up this little plastic, pop-together, pop-up fucking shed thing to keep the tools in. We had it on a little platform. Me and my uncle spent a weekend putting it together. Later that week, the government comes to us with a notice saying, you didn't get a permit for permission to put that on your property. So then I get the wake-up call of, hey, you don't own your property. You can't even decide what's on your property. You can't even put together this $100 plastic little pop-up shed that looks like the wind would blow it over if your fucking lawnmower wasn't in it without daddy government's say-so. So this isn't your house. This isn't your property. This isn't your land. It's the government's. The government owns all of it. Now, my mom, because she's worked for government, she'll just rationalize it. Oh, well, I should have did the permit first. It really is my house. It doesn't matter if they tell me what I can have on the property or not, and blah, blah, blah. And it's because, you know, there were people, and it would be whatever, and, you know, it's the rationalizing thing. Well, that's it on a small level. This is it on a big level. This is when the Orlando shooting happened. And I mean, we saw this even at 9/11. When 9/11 happened, what was it? They hate us because of our freedoms. They hate us because of who we are. And now, granted, to some extent, maybe that's true. Or maybe they hate us because they've been indoctrinated and taught to hate anything other than themselves. I mean, let's face it, you know, radical Islam is not very specific about why they would hate us because of our freedoms and not anyone else. They hate everyone because everyone isn't Islamic. It's that simple. So, maybe a shred of truth to that one, but not fully. But this is an ongoing thing. This is an ongoing thing where the left has this attitude of, we're going to bully, we're going to intimidate, we're going to say whatever the fuck we want about you, and then if you push back the slightest bit, well, we're going to say you're unhinged, you're unstable, you're inciting violence. And I mean, normally when we talk about the left hating self-defense, it is in regards to guns. It's not a Second Amendment thing. This is a principle of theirs. I thought they were unprincipled. I really did. I thought they were unprincipled. But the more I look, they have principles. They are just such toxic, mentally ill principles that it's like, you, as a normal person, you can't imagine viewing life that way. You can't imagine getting shot for being gay at a nightclub by some radical Muslim and thinking, well, you know, I do suck cock, so I guess I deserved a bullet. So, yeah, you know, I guess it's, but in America, you know, he could get a gun, so, yeah, it's our fault. Fuck that. So anyway, I want to show a few examples of how this sort of spreads into other areas. First one we're going to check out is this clip of the always unhinged Simone Sanders talking about the Kavanaugh hearing. Now, remember what the accusations being leveled at him. Serial rapist for fucking having a beer and maybe copping a feel. Let's just go with what was being said. Maybe he copped a feel and that bitch ran out. That still isn't rape. That still is nowhere near the level of accusation and the circus that they turn this shit into.
Judge Kavanaugh had to say today. Do you believe that he's telling his truth?
I don't believe, so one, I don't believe Brett Kavanaugh is telling the entire truth, just the part that he noted about the yearbook entry. But we called the young woman the Renati alumni because she was one of us, but she didn't know about it. I just thought it wasn't believable. I think he told non-truths. He lied about things I don't think he needed to lie about, but perhaps he felt as though he could not give any ground because he didn't want to be found culpable for anything. The most striking thing for me was his anger. I understand if you believe you have not done something wrong and you are upset and you are angry, but the way he portrayed himself at the outset of this hearing today, he looked unhinged. He looked dismissive. He also took direct aim at Democratic senators. You are auditioning for a job, sir, and these senators, it is their job to advise and consent. It reminded me that Brett Kavanaugh at his heart was an operative. Let's not forget he was a Republican operative. So he did.
As if Ruth Bader Ginsburg isn't a liberal operative. Again, rules for me, not for thee. And she even says, I can understand if you're angry, but his anger unhinged,
not come
you
off
know,
as someone
whatever.
that just wanted to come out and just clear his name. He came out as someone that wanted to come out swinging, punching, and hitting, and wanted to let you know that he wasn't going to take anybody's stuff today. And I don't think that helped him at all.
And I just wonder if that man almost breaking down in tears at some point, yelling that he didn't do anything, if that's unhinged, well then what were the gangs of people slamming on the Supreme Court door? And I mean, it's like, you want to talk, again, there's a detachment from reality where everything they do in this is the lack of principle. Everything they do in their eyes is justified. You know, we're going to get into a clip from them trying to say that Donald Trump incites violence. Because remember, when he was campaigning, that was the big thing. Because he basically said, if someone's heckling, knock him out, drag him out, whatever. That's how shit happens. You know, at hardcore shows, at any sort of concert, if someone's, you know, heckling the band, that's what's going to happen. Comedy shows, hecklers will get handled.
I certainly don't incite violence.
Knock the crap out of him. Like to punch him in the face.
I don't condone violence, and I don't talk about violence.
I would have done well, but I would have been boom, boom, boom. I'll beat that. I don't know if I'll do the fighting myself or if other people will.
Maybe he should have been roughed up because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing.
If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. Like to punch him in the face.
See, and again, these are the things you saw in that first little bit. No context. Punch him in the face. Knock the crap out of him. And now you're seeing the context. If they throw a tomato at me, knock him out. Certainly reasonable. That is certainly reasonable. And the thing that bothers me the most is this, you know, where we first learned this sort of Stockholm, you know, battered wife syndrome type thing is the playground. Like, I think about the playground all the time with my nephew, and kids will be bullying him, and he's a big kid, and I just tell him, punch him in the face, or at least teach him how to, so he knows he can. Because just not like, that was me with martial arts. I knew if I got into a fight with one of the kids picking on me in school, they were going to the nurse's office, if not just out in an ambulance. Like, I knew what I was capable of, and I knew if they were running their mouth, they A, didn't know what I was capable of, and B, they weren't capable of it myself. Because people that are actually capable of some shit don't have to talk shit. I mean, I remember a friend of mine had this kid that was, cheating with a girlfriend. I mean, the girlfriend's kind of a sleazebag, but, 16-year-old high school stuff, you forgive the bitch and go after the other dude. But, I mean, walked right up to him. Hey, what's up? And then next thing you know, he's up against this car, and my other friend just kicked him. And let me tell you, this kid made an impact, dented into the car like it was a goddamn superhero movie. Like this, but my friend now, his hands are registered. His hands are registered weapons. So he's not going to talk tough. He's just, if he's going to hit you, he's just going to come up to you. Hey, what's going on? Boom. That's it. Lights out. End of story. That's how it should happen. But we're in this new world where everyone's bubble wrapped and you can't protect yourself. Self-defense is the biggest problem for liberals, even if it's just over verbal, because, words are violence according to them.
Try not to hurt him. If you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it. In the good old days, this doesn't happen because they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, they would not do it again so easily. We become weak. We become weak.
And you know what? The audience swung back. And I thought it was very, very appropriate. The audience hit back. And that's what we need a little bit more of. Now,
part of the problem and part of the...
And that is the liberals' issue with self-defense, is that it's fighting back. Not that it's fighting, not that it's inciting, that it's responsive. Because if they can set that as the standard and they're the only bully, then everyone else will just say, oh, I'm sorry that, I made you exert energy in beating me. Oh, I'm sorry, radical Islamist. Maybe we shouldn't have had a gay nightclub. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe we shouldn't have guns because then you'll shoot me with the guns. Oh, woe is us. We're victims forever.
The reason it takes so long is nobody wants to hurt each other anymore, right? I don't know if I would have done well, but I would have been out there fighting, folks. I don't know if I would have done well, but I would have been boom, boom, boom. I'll beat that.
Do you plan on paying for the legal fees of this?
All right. Well, and one of the things I want to say is part of it's because there's too much social currency in victimhood. Jesse Smollett. That's all I have to say on that. Jesse Smollett staged a production in order to make himself appear as a victim because of all the social currency he thought that he would gain from that. Now, let's jump around a little bit here. Here are some other things where it's like, just so we can see how far it goes, and that it's a global thing with the left. We have them here. Let me find this woman. Yeah, here we go.
Laws for weapons as a response to some of these horrific crimes that are taking place all over the country, and certainly the specificity with women. But of course, if you've been reading Claire Lehman in The Australian and plenty of other people, there's lots of issues there about violence with men as well. But there is a question here about how one can or should be able to defend themselves. Senator Hume, should you be able to defend yourself with non-lethal weaponry?
No, I don't think arming the citizenry is the right idea. I think, look, Fraser's intent...
And here's the thing is, again, non-lethal weaponry. This just reminds me of the, that one ING thing on that video I did on the podcast about the Call of Duty. I wish there was a non-lethal option. So he wants a video game where terrorists are terrorizing Americans and other people, and you save them. You stop them from trying to kill you and everyone else non-lethally. You do it without hurting them. And the only reason you would have that mindset is if you somehow think they're justified. And we saw that even in the other reporter. Well, they're civilians, I mean, supposed terrorists, but civilians. Even with her, you might as well just say, do you think people have a right to defend themselves? No. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Tasers, pepper spray. I mean, now we're just going down the list of like, harmless items. You might as well say, do you think you have a right to defend yourself with a pillow, like a goddamn pillow fight? No. These people want to be victims because they get more out of being victims in the media, in the press, and all that than they do from not having problems and being strong. Strong is viewed as bad to them.
Is very good. The number of assaults, though, yes, that they're on the rise, but I think the number of reported assaults are on the rise. The real issue, though, with violence against women is not necessarily sort of these random acts of violence like we saw in the Eurydice Dixon case, but more domestic violence. And that's really where the government's focus is on addressing domestic violence issues.
And, of course, for some reason, this dumb bitch doesn't think like, oh, if you give a woman pepper spray or a taser or something like that, and then her husband goes to beat the crap out of her, that she can't use it on her husband? Because why? I mean, so, here we see tasers, anything basically, off the table in Australia. And of course, we have Sadiq Khan.
You cannot have knives delivered to your home, and you can't order them online.
What about wedding registries?
Let's bring this back a little bit.
Rescinded the policy of searching.
Okay, Raymond, where are we starting to knife control?
Got to start with Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London's knife control. Now, this is the same man, just to remind everybody.
Okay.
A few years ago, he rescinded the policy of searching and stopping people who might have knives, might have weapons,
frisk?
because he said it's racist and might be Islamophobic.
Wait, did they only stop Islamic or?
Well, they stopped a lot of Islamic folks because these are members of gangs, and it's mostly gang activity in London that we're seeing.
But they thought they were profiling?
8 to 15 knife attacks a day in London.
What?
8 to 15. So now he's passing these knife control measures, which means you cannot have knives delivered to your home and you can't order them online.
What about?
And one of the things that they've had these knife depositories where people can come and drop off their knives in the public, and guess what happens? They get broken into, and then some asshole, some evil person has all the knives. And what's Sadiq Khan's message? Oh, what did he say about these things? Well, this is part of living in a big, diverse city. Bend over and take it, London. Shank. 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 Take it. Take it, bitch. I mean, this is the battered wife. The UK, London is the battered wife of Sadiq Khan. If there's a knife attack, it's because you're not diverse enough. If there's whatever, let's see, rape. Oh, here we go.
Now, as the White House and those on the left try to limit your Second Amendment rights, there is startling new evidence about how far they are willing to go. Here are the two latest examples. Now, late last week, a Democratic Colorado state rep, Joe Salazar, suggested that women should not be armed with guns on college campuses, even if they feel like they could be raped. Here are his outrageous comments.
There are some gender inequities on college campuses. This is true. And universities have been faced with that situation for a long time. That's why we have call boxes. That's why we have safe zones. That's why we have the whistles. Because you just don't know who you're going to be shooting at. And you don't know if you feel like you're going to be raped, or if you feel like someone's been following you around, or if you feel like you're in trouble, and when you may actually not be, that you pop out that gun and you pop.
Now, two things. We're one into the other. Now, you got to ask, in these people's minds, if you can't defend yourself, who's going to defend you? Well, he said, there's the call boxes, and there's a safe space, and there's them. They are rationalizing their existence. And the thing is as long as they give you these faulty solutions, you know, police won't make it there in time. They'll tell you that themselves. Fucking what the fuck is a rape counselor gonna do when some guy's like holding you down, like, and you can't get to a call box? Do you really think a sign saying no rape zone is going to stop them? Like, it's like the no gun zones. And it's like, I was thinking about this because at my one job, I just had to do New York State mandatory sexual harassment training. That was an hour and a half of the same 10 points being said over and over and over and over again. And all I could think is, I said, who is this for? This is not, there's not a woman that's going to see this and then be like, oh, well, I was sexually harassed, so I'm going to, you know, report this or report that, or, you know, this, and that. There's not a guy that it's going to deter. And if anything, if, you know, someone got something out of that hour and a half, there's a hiring problem, because you're hiring people that are beyond dumb. I mean, it was just mind-numbing. But it's one of these things where it's like, okay, so if we take away self-defense, the practical method at preventing these issues, and we only take reactionary response, you know, you call police after a crime, you can't call them beforehand, and all of that, well, then it rationalizes having New York State have mandated sexual harassment training and mandated this training and a diversity workshop and this and then that, and like it creates the bureaucratic state that we're living under when you continually offer faulty solutions, and then when those solutions end up being obviously at fault, you are then there to say, oh, well, we have a new solution. We can add to this. We can do more to this. It's like the wage gap thing. Paying different wages has been illegal since the 60s. So are you going to pass a second law because the first one wasn't abided by? Like, it doesn't make sense. But this is how they bloat the state and create this giant bureaucratic mess we're in. All right, next one. Covington Catholic. This one is, you know, these kids didn't even defend themselves. They just stood up for themselves. They just didn't move.
Savannah Guthrie. Sandman says he wishes that he just walked away, but doesn't think he owes anyone an apology.
Which means, I wish this fucking circus wasn't going on over nothing, but I didn't do anything wrong.
Do you see your own fault in any way?
As far as standing there, I had every right to do so.
See, even the question shows where her mind is at. Do you see your own fault? Fault for what? Standing there, like he said. Great reaction. I just wish he was a bit more of a dick during this, because I would have been like, fault for what? What did I do?
My position is that I was not disrespectful to Mr. Phillips. I respect him. I'd like to talk to him. I mean, in hindsight, I wish we could have walked away and avoided the whole thing. But I can't say that I'm sorry for listening to him and standing there.
Tribal elder Nathan Phillips has told the Today Show the students should face some consequences.
Con artist Nathan Phillips face consequences for standing there and looking at him. You know, this is another example of this, where it's like, you know, he goes up to them and he's all in their face like a fucking man possessed. And because they didn't just cower in fear and say, oh, brown man, like a fucking wicked witch of the West with water on him, he thinks, oh, well, you know, they should have reprimanded.
The students should go through some kind of sensitivity training.
Sensitivity training, so that they're more sensitive to his brownness, so that they just cower in fear at that fucking mug right there. All right, next one. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of breezing through these, because, you know, I don't want to beat a dead horse. But there are a ton of examples of this where it's not a Second Amendment issue, it is a self-defense principle issue. So here we have here. you know, this is the left's giant conspiracy theory where somehow you can have obstruction on when someone is innocent, basically, and declaring your innocence and saying, you know, I haven't done this, can we just make it go away? That's, you know, getting you like, somehow you can be in trouble for declaring yourself innocent when you are innocent, and they think that they can still come after you for defending yourself. That's what this is. This obstruction thing is an attack on defense.
Obstruction of justice. Whoever corruptly or by threat or force influences, obstructs, or impedes, or endeavors to influence, obstruct, or impede the due administration of justice shall be guilty of an offense. Has President Trump interfered with the investigation into whether Russia meddled in the 2016 presidential election? Let's look at the evidence. In June 2017, Trump reportedly sought to fire Robert Mueller, the special prosecutor in charge of the Russia investigation. The president backed down, but a month earlier, he did fire FBI Director James Comey,
who, it has come out, is completely biased and had good reason for firing. He was completely within the law to fire him. And it didn't stop the trial or the investigation or anything like that. So they point to this as if it's something, and it's not, because if it obstructed justice, they wouldn't have anywhere to go after this. They would be like, May 27th, he fired Comey, and then it was all over, therefore obstruction. But no.
who was heading the investigation before Mueller. Comey says the president asked for his loyalty and suggested he make the Russia scandal go away.
Yeah, well, hold on. First thing, loyalty is, yeah, he's FBI, his boss is the president. You should be loyal to your boss, especially with that. And if you didn't do anything, what's the harm in saying, hey, I'm innocent here, find it as quick as you can and wrap this shit up? Let's not waste money. Let's not waste time. Let's not fucking, you know, again, that's not obstructing for him to say, because there is no crime, you can't have obstruction when there is no crime. But to these people, it doesn't work like that. Trump is obstructing them finding something to accuse him of. Like, it's very backwards, where it's like, they need a case because just look at how awful he is. That's the position they're now on again. Trump is just so bad, there has to be something, and we'll find it if we have an endless investigation. Remember, this Russia investigation is what gave us Stormy Daniels and Cohen and Manafort and nothing Russian whatsoever, but plenty of bullshit.
That didn't happen, so Trump made Comey go away. Before Comey was fired,
Comey went away, but the case didn't. So, no obstruction. So, you've wasted a minute of my time. Why?
Attorney General Jeff Sessions oversaw his work on the Russia probe. Trump liked that setup and pressured Sessions to stay in charge, despite conflicts of interest related to his role in the Trump campaign. Sessions recused himself after Congress discovered he failed to disclose meetings he had with the Russian ambassador as a campaign advisor.
Now, here's the other thing they do, is they act as if talking to, consulting with, you know, we had the Russian reset, where supposedly we were on good terms with them, and Obama, oh, yeah, I'll have more leeway in my second term, wait for my second term after the election. You know, Russia were good guys, we were on good terms with them. I mean, Hillary, you want to look at the people Hillary had meetings with? This is the other thing they do in this case, is they act as if normal, everyday things are criminal offenses, and just say, Russia, you know, to scare everyone, when the trap that Trump basically set for them, and I don't know if fucking Stephanopoulos' dumbass didn't realize this is what's going on, because they're so personally invested. I think they're just so short-sighted. You know, he asked him that question recently, if a foreign country gave you dirt on a candidate, would you blah, 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 listen to it, or would you report it? Trump was smart. He said, if Norway gave me information, I would listen to it. Maybe I'd report it to the FBI, but that's not really how this works. You know, this, and that. And they're all going crazy about Trump saying this, but it's exactly what the Hillary Clinton campaign did. Exactly what they did with the Fusion GPS dossier and Christopher Steele. They got all their information to start wiretapping, and this whole investigation is based on information from foreign sources.
Trump lost another ally when former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was forced out for lying to the FBI and Vice President. Trump asked then FBI Director Comey to let go of the case against his former campaign advisor. Flynn has since pled guilty to lying to the FBI about his meetings with the Russian ambassador. During the campaign, Donald Trump Jr. held a meeting with a Russian lawyer linked to the Kremlin. The lawyer
also linked to the Obama administration, overstaying on her visa with approval, but let's not mention any of that.
The lawyer promised damaging information on rival Hillary Clinton, but as president, Trump Sr. personally dictated a misleading statement about that Trump Tower meeting, saying it was primarily about Russian adoption.
That's what everything about it says. They said there was no... What was the damning information about Hillary then? And let me tell you, nothing is more damning to Hillary Clinton than Hillary Clinton.
This is what we know from White House leaks and dogged reporting. President Trump calls it all fake news. He says the entire Justice Department is politically biased against him. Mueller still has his job, though. And while he does it, Trump's behavior should have Congress seriously thinking about impeachment. It's been...
Where? Why? I didn't hear any obstruction. I just heard one guy lied, now they're gone. Another guy lied, now they're gone. I mean, it seems like justice is working from what you have laid out.
Congress seriously thinking about impeachment. It's been done before. Obstruction of justice was the first article of impeachment against Richard Nixon,
Who was guilty?
and the third article of impeachment against Bill Clinton.
Who was guilty?
In each case, the presidents were accused of a pattern of obstruction,
And were guilty.
allegedly making false statements, concealing evidence, and counseling witnesses to lie. Sound familiar?
No, because we have a report that says there was no collusion.
For Mueller to bring obstruction of justice charges against Trump, he'd have to prove that the president wasn't just lashing out, but that he was intentionally trying to block the investigation. That's very difficult.
Yeah, especially when he's not guilty.
And it's debatable whether the Constitution even allows a sitting president to be indicted. But whether or not Trump faces criminal charges, his behavior is unfit for the presidency.
His behavior's unfit. See, this is what I said. This is the thing they're just going to. Well, he's just unfit. He's just so bad. He's just, we can't find a criminal reason or anything like that, but he's a mean, big, bad orange man, so get rid of him. All right. Now this other one we're going to get to. Let me try to get to the specific spot.
Maybe with others' right to vehemently oppose what you're doing. Sure. By almost any. I would also strongly support others' right. This topic necessary. Maybe with force. I'm not advocating violence.
You're not, but you said by almost any means necessary.
By almost any means, yeah. Things like that, I fully support combating.
Now this is very telling. We'll take it right from here. So now this guy is saying, we got to stand up against the far right, and I don't know if you're far right, but we got to stand up against the far right, and I would support that by any means, by almost any means necessary. So
I'm not advocating violence.
You're not, but you said by almost any means necessary.
By almost any means, yeah. Things like that, I fully support combating by any means necessary.
And that means violence.
Yeah.
Even this Austin legend stopped by.
Hold on, let me try to find the full bit.
Even support.
Alright, well, I don't know where it is in here because I'm not seeing it while I'm scrolling through. Maybe they put out
Is Jimmy Fallon
a couple videos from this session. So anyway, with this guy with the fucking yellow mullet and all of that. Yeah, these are the ones I saw in the first video. Him talking to that chick and this and that. So anyway, this guy
right.
One of the things he says is like throwing milkshakes at people. And Crowder says, well, throwing a milkshake at someone, that's assault. And the guy goes, what are you, a pussy? It's just a milkshake, you pussy. Then Crowder's like, no, if someone threw a milkshake at me, wouldn't you say you should knock him out afterwards? And the guy's like, well, yeah, I would, but, it's a milkshake. So it's again that idea that, and part of it I think is just, as Gavin McInnes says, the right doesn't fight back. the right almost encourages this on themselves by not swinging back, by not fighting back. Look at what happened to Proud Boys with all of that. And even this attitude of, oh, well, it's just a milkshake, so blah, blah. But the milkshake is almost a symbolic thing, as Tommy Robinson, I believe, said. He said, it's really to show that we could kill you. We could walk up and shoot you. If we could throw a milkshake at you, we could throw whatever else we want at you. We could throw a grenade at you. We could throw whatever. It's to show that. And the fact that these people have this attitude, like, you should be willing to deal with having a milkshake thrown at you, and you should just take it, and you should be fine with it, and not do anything to stand up for yourself or fight back, that shows that you're a pussy. Because real strength is in fucking taking it. Real strength is in saying, here's my knife, Sadiq Khan, now let me go out to get shanked by a Muslim. Real strength to these people is by saying, oh, here, take all my guns, let's set up a gun-free zone, and then I'll get shot up by some crazy person. I mean, it's like, it is a Orwellian strength is weakness, what's the opposite of victim? The victim is the aggressor type of mentality, and it goes the whole way through. So, sorry I didn't have the right clip for this one, but I'm sure, judging by this guy's fucking mullet, you should just be able to take my word for it that he's unhinged. So yeah, that was the point I wanted to make today. Really just the idea about the left being anti-self-defense through and through, that they see being a victim as being an aggressor in actual cases of victimhood, and that you deserve it. It's the battered wife syndrome, basically, whether it be Obama or this guy or the gun control debate or Covington or any of them. It is the same preset idea that standing up for yourself is wrong. If you stand up for yourself, it's an admission of guilt and that you deserve what's happening to you. So, I guess I'm going to end it here. Subscribe to me on all your favorite video platforms, Twitch, DLive, DTube, whatever the fuck, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. It's at JAMIESTARRMUSIC, NewWorldNewsNetwork.com, JAMIESTARR.org, and click subscribe, share the video, everyone, and have a good day.